your brain can constantly learn until your last breath. And that's why it's extraordinary with people who have had strokes. And, if it's affected a part of the brain for speech, which is oftentimes the left side of the
Right.
brain, another part of the brain will take over. It may
Yeah, it's
take a little
amazing.
bit
Yeah.
to, speech therapy and things like this, but if that part of the brain has literally does not work anymore, has died, and blood flow does not go there anymore, another part of the brain will take over speech. It's
Yeah.
extraordinary what the brain
It's
will do.
incredible. It
Yeah.
really is. It's amazing. So, okay, so I know that this is a something that you were practicing sort of before your curveball event,
Yeah.
but it's something that this NLP and hypnotherapy is something that you became very, very, very like absolutely reignited. It seems like around it. So, talk to me a little bit about. Tell me about your curveball. Craig Meriwether, welcome to Curveball. I am
Hey,
so excited to welcome you all the way from Flagstaff, Arizona, right to Denver, Colorado. So it's like we're practically, well, we're
yeah,
sort
we're
of like,
neighbors.
we're close together. Yeah, exactly. We are neighbors. So, Craig, why don't you tell me a little bit? He has the most interesting job, which I cannot
Okay.
wait to learn more about. Tell me a little bit about who you work with and how you help and what you do.
Sure. Well, thanks, Heather, for inviting me onto the show. I've been looking forward to
Yes.
this for a while now. And I am a hypnotherapist. And
Ooh,
what I do is help people deal with the hurt and pain they may have in their lives. It could be, dealing with chronic anxiety or anger or overwhelm, or
right.
it may be issues around even physical pain. Who I help is anybody who's interested in making those big changes to turn their life around. And what's interesting about this methodology, these techniques of therapeutic hypnosis, is Dr. Irving Kirsch calls it a non-deceptive placebo. Meaning, of course, we've all,
Hmm.
heard of placebos in
I
every
love that.
single medical and scientific study that's published in a peer-reviewed medical or scientific journal.
Right.
You have to have that placebo. You have to have that control group, and especially when you're doing medications and studying this new drug that was going to help with high blood pressure.
Right.
And half the group's going to get that sugar pill. They're going to be tricked into healing themselves because they know they have to account for that. They know it's going to happen. They
Right.
know mind will heal the body. So they actually have to account for that in their research. Even in surgery, you can go on the internet and look up like that knee surgery trial that went on, I think, a decade or so ago, and wanting to get his research, this knee surgeon wanting to get his research into a medical journal, you have to have a placebo. So he literally did fake surgery on people, and they got better, as well as the people who received surgery on their knees. They healed themselves, even though they were using
Right.
canes and walkers, and now they're playing, basketball with their grandchildren. There's a BBC documentary about it. It's extraordinary what the mind can do. And so what we do in therapeutic hypnosis, we use mind to heal body. We just do it on purpose. We don't trick
Right.
you into doing it. You can do it yourself. And so I don't actually fix anybody. And hypnotherapy in and of itself doesn't fix anybody. You fix yourself. And so
Right.
what is it you want to change? You're allowed, whether it's a mindset issue, limiting beliefs about yourself, lack of confidence, or it's an emotional issue. Again, you're drowning in anger or anxiety or overwhelm or worry, fears. There's also physical issues. If there's physical pain or healing acceleration, lots of studies, Harvard studies showed that when they looked at broken legs, people with similar broken legs all have casts on their legs. Half the group got hypnotherapy, the other group didn't. The group that got hypnotherapy healed 40% quicker than the group that didn't get it. They healed in
That
5 weeks, got their casts off in 5 weeks, whereas their group had their casts on for 8 weeks. And so it's pretty extraordinary what we can do. And in terms of who this works for, a couple months ago, I worked with a 10-year-old who'd had
right.
chronic nightmares almost every night for 2 years straight.
Oh, right.
45 minutes and we're done. Never had a
Amazing.
night, hasn't had a nightmare again in like 2 to 3 months. I worked with a 77-year-old a couple weeks ago. So this works,
Right.
because it's you. We're working with you. So whether
Right.
you're a 7-year-old or a 77-year-old, it's going to work.
Right. That's absolute. Well, I really believe in the power of mind because I had
Yeah.
like a brain issue. And when my brain was being grumpy, and now that it's like
Yeah.
versus now that it's healed, and it's just amazing. Like, just how it's, of course, I don't want anyone to have like a brain aneurysm,
Right.
and brain surgery, but I do wish that everyone could feel how powerful the connection is when you start to create these new connections. Because
Yeah.
it's not like I have muscle memory. I have to create like new memories of like
Right.
how to use my hands and things. Like, so something like doing like this was like really hard. But
Yeah.
when I could do it, like, this is like thrilling, I'm just like, oh
Yeah.
my God, this is amazing. But like seeing my brain doing it, what it would try to
Mm.
do, like, it was like trying so hard, and then I can finally do it again. I wish that everyone could feel that connection, because
Yeah.
when you it must it like, this is just my left hand was most affected. I can only imagine how thrilling it must be for people who like have been in car accidents or something and they can't walk and then they can walk again. Like, it just is thrilling. I definitely want to talk about your curveball, but I'm so interested because I can tell you're so passionate about this too. Like, you so believe in it. Why do you think why do you think more people don't know about this? Or do you think enough
Yeah.
people know about this? Or because the
Yeah.
way that you explained this to me is the first time I thought I really understood what hypnotherapy was, but this your explanation of it was really good.
Yeah.
It's much different than what I thought it was.
Yeah. It's unfortunate that even though there's all this research out there, there's just this misconceptions about what it is. People are afraid of it because they think they're going to be, you know, control is going to be taken away.
Right.
And quite the opposite. Control is giving back to you. Because in reality, if you're struggling with anxiety, you're struggling with anger, it's not to say it was your fault. For whatever reason, you're armoring yourself with that
Right.
fear, that anxiety, or that anger, maybe even since you were a little kid. It's not to blame the victim or say it was your fault or it should have happened. Certainly not. But you're the one who's doing it. You're the one
Right.
who is creating those connections in your brain to react automatically to a situation.
Right.
You're already hypnotized yourself and maybe you understand what the situation is that triggers that anger or that anxiety or that fear, or maybe it's all unconscious. Either way, you've hypnotized yourself to react automatically to a certain
Right.
situation, because more than likely you're not angry all the time, you're not anxious all the time. It may
Right.
seem like it, but you're not. There are parts of your day when you're not. And so your mind knows when to trigger it, when to turn on that fight or flight stress response. So you've already hypnotized yourself to react to certain situations in your world in a certain
Right.
way. So let's just do it on purpose. And so it's really giving you back control. And, a lot of people think of it as some sort of like voodoo zombified trance
Right.
state.
Right.
And it's not. I mean, we can do this with your eyes open, having a conversation. And it's just focusing on what it is you want to change, because I can't make
Right.
anybody do anything they don't want to do. So somebody comes to me to quit smoking. First off, smoking cessation is a 100% guarantee, because I can't make anybody do anything they don't want to do. If they don't want to
Right.
stop smoking, I can't. If they, maybe their spouse is making them go to hypnotherapy because it's a nasty habit and it's expensive and it
Right.
stinks, and so they come to hypnotherapy just to negotiate smoking in the garage. They
Right.
have no
Right.
intention of quitting. They don't want to quit, and so they don't. Just as if somebody wants to quit smoking, they come to me. They'll quit smoking, but I can't make them go rob a bank, and we'll split the loot later on,
Right. Right.
because I
Right.
can't go into prisons and hypnotize everybody to be upstanding, law-abiding citizens. I can't go to leaders of the world and create world peace. I can't get Elon Musk to write me $1 billion check.
Right.
Why?
Right.
Because he doesn't want to. The reason I
Right.
don't have $1 billion in my bank account from Elon Musk is because he doesn't want to write me $1 billion check. And
Right.
so you can't make anybody do anything you don't want to do. Now, I know there's those shows, the Las Vegas shows and the comedy clubs, and you've seen videos on YouTube and the late night talk shows
Sure.
and things like that.
Right.
And you have to remember, everybody who gets up on that stage, assuming that it's for real, that it's not a setup, that they're not the local improv troupe or whatever, but assuming that that's all for real, let's just assume that. Every single person who got up there volunteered to go up there. Why? Because
Oh,
they want to
right.
have fun. They're extroverts, they're exhibitionists. They want to act silly. They want to have a good time. And
Right.
so the hypnotists, they come out, hey, everybody, we're going to have a great show and have a lot of fun tonight. Who wants to get up here and have a really great time? A
Right.
bunch of people raise their hands, and they're not going to like pick the person who's kind of halfway raising their hand, or whose friends are, who, him, them, make them go up
Right.
there. No,
Right.
he's not going
Right.
to pick those people. He's going to pick the people who are really excited to be up there. They're jumping up and down and waving their hands. And they go up there, and do you want to go into hypnosis and have a really fun time? Yes. And so they dance like Michael Jackson. They sing like
Right.
Elvis Presley, and they quack like a duck
Yeah.
and everything, because I don't want to. And I'm sure maybe Heather, you don't want to. And probably a lot of your listeners don't want to either. But
Right.
there are some people who do. I don't know
I think
why,
I would
but
want
they do.
to.
Oh,
Yes.
well, there you
I
go.
think
And
I
then
would
you
want
probably
to.
have a great
Yes.
time. And you have a funny video to put on TikTok
Yeah.
and
That's
Instagram, and
amazing.
hopefully
Yeah.
go viral and all that stuff. So you can't make anybody do anything they don't want to do. In fact, there's people who will go up there on the shows just like a heckler. People will go to a comedy club just to heckle the comedian, just to be part
Right.
of the show. Well, they want to
Right.
trick the hypnotist. Oh, I'll show them. They can't make me go into hypnosis. And so part of the show is there's a kind of an introductory trance state he puts them in. I was like, I want everybody to put their hands together and pretend they're glued shut. Pretend your hands are super glued together. You can't pull them apart. Just try to pull them apart. And everybody's like, ugh. And there's that one person who does this and pulls their
Right.
hands apart. They're off the stage because they're
Right.
not going to be a good candidate for a fun show. These people paid great money, big money
Right.
to be at this show, especially in Vegas.
That is so interesting.
And so the hypnotist, he or she are going to pick somebody who's going to be a good candidate to have a
Right.
fun show. And so imagine if you want to heal. The big problem with this, because of those misconceptions and maybe just not really understanding what it's about, we're usually the last on the list of help, the help list,
Right.
the 911 list. We're usually last. We get people who have been to the doctors, who have been going to talk therapy for years, who have
Right.
had this chronic pain for a decade, and the MRIs and the x-rays and the physical therapy. Nobody can figure out what the problem is.
Right. Right.
And so, I would work with somebody a couple months ago and didn't even tell me they had chronic hip pain. We were working on something else. And there's a process where I was like, when you feel that anger or that anxiety, it's like a plug. I want you to disconnect from it. I literally want you to take your hand, grab that plug and pull it out, and pull out these
Right.
plugs of hurt and pain, wherever they may be, your heart, the back of your head, your spinal cord, your low back, your legs. And people will pull and pull and pull these cords. And she was pulling. And a couple of days later, I emailed her to check up, just say, hey, how are you doing? How are things going? She says, oh, all my hip pain is gone, because she pulled out the
Amazing.
plug from her hip. And she actually had to ask her ancestors and angel and things to come, and it was, and I had no idea. I had no idea she was doing that. I had no idea she was having trouble removing the plug. I had no
Right.
idea she had like 20 years of hip pain, and she just
Amazing.
unplugged this thing from her hip. Real, unreal, imagined, I don't know. And no
Right.
more hip pain. It's
That's
extraordinary what you
incredible.
can do. Yeah. Yeah.
I just think the brain is absolutely the most amazing thing. I
Yeah.
read this really good book called Mind Over Medicine, actually, which is just how do you it was just so helpful because you
Yeah.
really can we do have everything we need to heal ourselves. That's what I'm convinced. And I
Yeah.
remember, like, even though I was feeling powerless over, like, literally like the injury in my brain, I knew I had control over what I thought, what I said, and what I ate, and how I moved my body. Like, those were the things. And so then I'm for
Yeah.
sure going to work with you because
Yeah.
I am positive. Like, my husband and I were
Well,
just talking about. Okay, anyways,
yeah. Well, the,
so
the brain's amazing, because that's why they tell as you get older, it's like learn how to play chess, learn how to salsa dance, learn a
yeah,
foreign language, learn all these things, because they want your brain to continue to work and
right,
learn new things. So you get older, it's like, oh, you're not working anymore. Maybe you're retired and you're not learning
right,
anything new, or you're not doing anything different. And so
right,
learn new things. Your brain can constantly learn until your last breath. And that's why it's extraordinary with people who have had strokes. And, if it's affected a part of the brain for speech, which is oftentimes the left side of the
right.
brain, another part of the brain will take over. It may
Yeah, it's
take a little
amazing.
bit
Yeah,
to, speech therapy and things like this. But if that part of the brain has literally does not work anymore, has died, and blood flow does not go there anymore, another part of the brain will take over speech. It's
yeah.
extraordinary what the brain
It's
will do.
incredible.
Yeah.
It really is. It's amazing. So, okay, so I know that this is a something that you were practicing sort of before your curveball event, but
Yeah.
it's something that this NLP and hypnotherapy is something that you became very, very, very like absolutely reignited. It seems like around it. So, talk to me a little bit about. Tell me what your curve. Tell me about your curveball.
Sure. Well, it really started in my teenage years that I really started dealing with a lot of depression and anxiety,
Mm,
right? What's going on in the house as I was growing
right.
up. And so it really started affecting me in my teenage years. This is the 1980s.
Yeah, where
And,
nobody knew anything about
nobody knew
anything.
anything. There's obviously
Right.
no internet. There's the SSRI drugs, Prozac, and things like that. That didn't come out till the late 1990s. And so really all you had was talk therapy or whatever book you might find in a bookstore or library or something. Of course, teenagers not going to do any of those things.
Right.
And so it was just something I lived with. It's just how do you know how it's supposed to be different? Why would you think that it's going to be different? Or,
Right.
you know, it's like trying to describe color to a blind person. It's like, well, if you don't experience it, how would you ever understand that it could be different? And so it's
Right.
just something I just live with and manage and have my ups and my downs through the 1990s as I was getting older. But it was really the birth of my son in the year 2000 that I really said, okay, I got to get my act together. My mother struggled with depression and anxiety. I'm struggling with depression and anxiety. So whether it's nature or nurture, there's a good
Right.
chance that my son's going to struggle with it. So I wanted some tools that I could show him. So
Mm,
here's what you can do about it. So it was that real kind of kick to the gut, that slap upside the head. It's like, okay, you got to get it together. And
right.
so I'm bad. This is the year 2000, 2001. So the internet's out there. There's a lot more research and abilities to find techniques and strategies on how to deal. And so I just started working with it, and it was on and off. It
Right.
was a lot of experimentation, and some things worked, some things didn't. But after working with it for a while, finding some tools and techniques that worked for me, I woke up one day and was like, oh, I'm not, I don't have that heaviness anymore. I'm not carrying it around anymore. And I still had some
Mm,
ups and downs. I still have some issues, but I knew how to deal with it. Yeah.
right.
But what was fascinating, so that's, I'm in my 30s. But it was really just a few years ago, just after my 50th birthday, something happened at work, and I was just enraged for like 8 hours, and I just could not wrap my mind around what had happened, the issue at work, and I was so angry. And it literally wasn't until I met my wife for dinner, we had a date night, and that I started to calm down. And I was just like, at the next day, that was a Friday. The next day was Saturday, and I'm at the gym, and I'm working out. I'm like, I felt so euphoric, and I thought
Oh,
that's really odd to like have been so enraged at one point and then so euphoric the next day. And I thought, oh, that's almost like being bipolar.
right.
And so and I know that's not how bipolar works, but it was just that just thought that entered my mind. Oh, bipolar. And just starting scanning my timeline
Right.
on the ups and the downs and all that. I'm like, oh my, that's interesting. And so I went to somebody who could test me on that, and a psychiatric nurse practitioner. And it was like 27-page form or test you got to take, and
Right.
but anyway, I scored pretty high. Not for bipolar one. That's the one where you have you're really depressed and then you're really manic, and the
Hmm.
manic's really fun. I know
It
people. I know.
sounds. I
Yeah,
know that it's probably so inappropriate to say, but it sounds like when people are in that manic state,
it's
just
amazing. It's utter
what
bliss.
was
I know
yeah,
people who don't take their medication sometimes just to
just to
feel like
feel
that.
that.
Yeah.
Like,
But
what does you said it's utter bliss. So could, could you describe that for me? I'm so
what did I
intrigued.
say it was?
Utter bliss.
Oh, edible. Oh no, that's bipolar one.
Oh, okay.
And so that's the one you hear about where they go off to Vegas and marry somebody else and mortgage their
Right.
house and have a really great
Right.
week of being lost. That's bipolar one. I'm diagnosed bipolar two,
Okay.
and bipolar two, yeah, you get the depression, but the manic part shows up as anxiety.
Oh,
And so you don't get
snap.
the blitz. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And so you don't get I mean, it's there here and there, but you don't get those highs.
Right.
It's a
But it's
real
like
subdued.
the equivalent of a blissful high, but just a ball of anxiety.
Yeah. It's just, yeah, there's no bliss or high or joy in it. It's just, you're either depressed or
Oh.
you're anxious. And that's
Oh.
bipolar too. And that's what I got diagnosed with a few years ago. And while it's one of those things where, like, oh, at least now you know what you're dealing with,
Right.
it's also like, oh, that was exhausting,
Yeah.
having to deal with that. And I still deal with that. I mean, it's not like, you hypnotize yourself out of that. It's just a structure of the
Right.
brain, the way it connects together. And you can certainly have techniques and tools and to manage it and feel better. And when you realize what is happening, get yourself out of it, which is
Right.
what I've been doing. I just didn't realize what I was trying to get myself out of.
Oh,
And
okay. Right.
so there's tools to manage this kind of stuff, and not medication. I mean, there is medication, but I wasn't doing medication. There were just exercises and techniques and tools that work for me in my situation. And it wasn't until, like, God, 15 years later that I really understood what I was dealing with
Right.
after kind of managing it for so long. And, it's nice to have that diagnosis and
Right.
really, really, truly understand what's happening. And now there's even a deeper understanding of how to get myself out of it
Right.
if I, have one of those days.
Sure.
Understanding it's just brain chemistry and the way my brain is wired, the way
Right.
it works.
So
And
it's
so,
like it's like you're still like you might wake up feeling like that depressed feeling,
mhm,
but now you have a strategy
yeah,
that you're able to say, okay, I recognize this, like I can name this,
yeah,
and I have a strategy to make this
yeah.
like what's the outcome for you? Like, I mean, what does that feel like? What's your before and after like
Oh,
when you do this?
I know how to get myself out of it. It's just there's a certain relentlessness to this work, like to any work. I'm sure, like the
Right.
work you're doing for yourself. It's not that you just do it once or twice. It's like not like
Right.
you go to the gym once or twice and work with a personal trainer, and all of a sudden you're ripped for the rest of your life. Just like going to martial arts. Just because
Right.
you got a black belt doesn't mean you stop training. Now you got to
Right.
keep training
Exactly.
every day.
Right.
And same with this. It's just like with anybody, not just because I'm dealing with my situation. It's like anybody. You want joy and happiness and confidence, you can have it. But like
Right.
anything, is what you practice, you get better at.
Right.
And there's a certain relentlessness to joy. The Dalai Lama still meditates every day.
Sure. Right.
The guy's 90
Yeah.
years old,
Yeah.
and if you look at his situation, yeah, you read his books. He talks about the anger and the despair and sorrow. That's a normal human reaction to tragedy. What's going on in Tibet for him, let alone the rest of the world. And the Chinese government is still bulldozing down his monasteries to build roads
Right.
and new buildings, and probably mostly to give him the middle finger. They're still, like, arresting his monks, torturing his monks. And of course, that's going to cause despair and sorrow. He's a human being. He's going to feel that, but
Right.
he doesn't want that to be who he is. And so every day he practices loving kindness and compassion. 90 years old, he's still
Right.
practicing. And look at his life. He's not married. He doesn't have any kids. He doesn't have
Right.
a lot of the life challenges that all of us have. Or, but and granted, he still has great responsibility, but he has a staff to help him manage all of that
Right.
stuff. And yet he's still doing the work. He's still
Right.
doing the practice. Look at anybody, Tony Robbins. There's just that documentary about him that came out a few years ago, I'm Not Your Guru, on Netflix. It's pretty
Right.
interesting if you like that kind of thing, but it just shows him during one of those week-long events that he does. But it shows him before. And it's like he's doing the work. He's doing
Right.
his physical work. He's jumping on a little trampoline for his adrenal glands. He's doing his meditative work. He's doing the cold plunge. And then before he goes out on stage, he puts himself in state. Guy's been
Right.
doing this since the early 1980s, 40 years.
I know,
And
like,
yet
I
he still
think
puts
about when I
himself in
used to
state.
babysit and he would be on late night,
Yeah.
first selling credit cards, I remember. And
Yeah.
then and I just remember thinking, like, what is this self-help? Like, I just think about
Yeah.
him now, like, how much conviction he must have had in what he new because nobody was talking about. I mean, I just
Well, he's one of the first
he
ones who
was so far ahead
really,
of his time.
yeah, he's the first one who really took all that new neurolinguistic programming information
Right.
and really brought it to the masses, brought it to the common people, because it was
Interesting.
all academic. That was started by Richard Bandler and John Grinder. I forget who was who, but one of them was a mathematician, the other was a linguist, and they would talk. They were at the University of California at Santa Cruz in the early 1970s, and they talk about healing language of like Milton
Right.
Erickson or Sylvia or Virginia Satir and Fritz and Laura Pearls, who developed Gestalt therapy. They talk about healing language, and they have such great outcomes with the people they
Right.
work with. How do they do it? And so they said, well, let's codify it. And so they started researching language, words, phrases, tonality, timing, and they put it into a system that is actually can be codified on an Excel spreadsheet or on a whiteboard. And they called it neurolinguistic programming. And Tony Robbins in the early 80s was one of the first ones to take this academic research and break it down and say, here's how you can use this to change your life. You
Amazing.
know, and that's one of the things that helped me in the when the birth of my son, and as I was learning how not only to talk to myself, but
Right.
doing this visualization work, more of the therapeutic hypnosis kind of work, that really helped me
Right.
to deal with a lot of the hurt and pain I was going through that would trigger the depression and anxiety.
Sure.
And so after working on myself and doing and just seeing how amazing you can become
Right.
on purpose by doing
Right.
this kind of work, and it's not hard.
Right.
It's pretty
Yeah.
simple. It's not digging it. It's not like it's going to be 80, 90 sessions like it may be with talk therapy, um, because I think a lot of people get stuck in the mud with talk therapy because they're not really sure what the problem is.
Right.
So you just talk about problems at work and problems with my relationships, and feeling really angry when this happens, and that's fine. That's great to have a coach to help you with that. But if you're
Right.
not really dealing with the problem because it's
Exactly.
unconscious,
Right.
why would anything ever get better? And
I
so that's
I
what
know
therapeutic
exactly
hypnosis does.
I know
Yeah,
exactly what you're saying because like I have done talk therapy, which I find helpful, but I'm very much like I want to be more of I'm looking out the windshield and I'm looking in the rearview mirror for reference maybe on maybe how I'm driving, but
yeah,
sometimes I feel like it keeps you too much in a past story or to your
yeah.
point, like you're sort of
Well,
looking for problems a little bit. Um,
what you practice, you get better at. So if you keep
yeah,
going over and over the same thing, and I know people say, "Well, I don't know what the problem is." It's like, but you do. Maybe
right.
not consciously, but it's in your unconscious mind. And that's what
Totally.
therapeutic hypnosis, it goes directly to the source. Just ask, what is the problem that keeps causing this anger to appear or this anxiety or this
Right.
fear? It'll tell you. It's the
Right.
one creating it.
Yeah.
It's just doing it automatically, unconsciously in your
Right. And so
subconscious
like and
mind.
then your nervous system is off to the races, like you're triggered. So one of the things that you said was really, really interesting to me was, well, two things. One, you said when I started to work on myself and I realized these were the things that happened that then triggered my depression and anxiety. So that's also something interesting is you're really focusing on the before of that. Like you're becoming very aware of the things like it would be like, oh, if I, hit my head with a hammer, that hurts. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah,
you're just like, okay, so I'm not going to do that anymore. So you're just like,
yeah,
so you're able to be almost preemptive, which I thought was very interesting.
yeah,
And you also talked about being in state. And I know like in when you were like in your submission form, you were talking about how you get in state in the more and just how that's like such a amazing part of like such a
yeah.
part of your ritual. And you mentioned that relative to Tony Robbins. So
Yeah,
what does
well,
that mean?
I think it's something that we know actors do before they go out on stage. The great Ian McKellen just recently was in London doing King Lear, I think, one of those Shakespearean play. And even though he's a great actor and he's got to be in his 70s, maybe heading towards 80, and he's been acting Shakespearean, he was in the Royal Shakespearean Theater before he started doing all the Lord of the
Right.
Rings stuff and X-Men and all that. He was been doing this for probably, at least 60 years. I guarantee you, he's putting himself in state before he walked out on stage as King
Sure.
Lear, whichever play he was doing. Same with any athlete. You're an Olympic athlete. You're doing gymnastics. You're walking up to the mat. You're putting yourself in state, that zone. And we see, like, of course, an athlete's doing that. Of course, an actor's going to do it. Before Taylor Swift walks out in front of 80,000 people,
Right.
and the musicians and the dancers in her show, they're all putting themselves in a state to perform for the next 3 hours.
Right.
Why don't we do that? Before the start of our
Right.
day, before we sit in our car, before we walk into work, why not put yourself in state instead of just the crappy drive to work because there was construction or a fender bender and that slowed
Right.
everything down. And now, why not take 2-3 minutes to put yourself in state, or
Like
before the meeting?
what would that look like? Yeah. So before
Well,
the meeting. So like,
I think different to each person, but I would think it'd be more of a, to some people, it'd be more of a meditative work.
mm-hmm.
If you watch Tony Robbins, he's pumping his fists in the air and
He
spinning
jumps on a
around, and then he walks
trampoline.
out.
Yeah.
Yeah, he walks out on stage to high energy music and the lights going around. So it depends on what you want and what you want to do. And it's, of
Right.
course, 8 billion people on the world. Everybody's going to be a little bit different. But whether it's a very meditative thing, and this is where the kind of trial and error comes in. You just start working, well, I have to meet with investors for my new business, or I got a meeting with the board of directors, or I just got a meeting,
Right.
or I got to, do a parent teacher conference, or I had a crappy day at work and now I got to go home and I know my family's going to be there and I don't want to be in a bad mood. Well, let's sit in your car, sit in your driveways, or park a couple blocks away at the park and just sit and just, I don't know, if you need to pretend that there's a vacuum tube coming up from the center of the earth attaching to your feet and suck it all out.
Right.
If you're feeling some anxiety somewhere in your, where do you feel it? Some people feel in their chest or their gut or their head or their arms or whatever. And what color is it? Is it like smoke? Is it like gunk? Is it like spiky red balls? I asked them that, is it like little black ping pong balls? And it's like, okay, suck them all out to the center of the earth.
Right.
A lot of this work of therapeutic hypnosis is just imagination and playing pretend.
Right. Right.
And the mind can't tell the difference between what's real and what's imagined. That's why we find ourselves in that anger and anxiety. It's not a real threat, but we're being triggered for some reason.
Right.
So again, let's do that on purpose. Just like having a nightmare in the middle of the night. Doesn't matter how crazy or how stupid, a gigantic cheeseburger's chasing you down the street throwing coconuts at you. It's stupid. It's dumb. It's like,
Right.
and yet literally in the middle of sleep, you'll turn on the stress response.
Right.
300% more blood moving to big muscle of your arms to fight. Brain's creating adrenaline and cortisol all during sleep because of cheese. So let's do that on purpose.
Right.
And do it for your healing. Again, this is like Dr. Irving Kerr said, it's a non-deceptive placebo. You can change not only how you feel in your body, but healing within your body through mind
Right.
alone, through thought. So let's change your thoughts.
Incredible.
And I know that's
Oh
a
my
big,
gosh,
big thing.
Lex,
That
like
could be a
that
whole
just
nother 3-hour conversation, but it's
Yeah.
pretty extraordinary what you're allowed to do. It's just nobody
Right.
ever told you could do that. And I think we
I
get
really
the
like that.
impression that we have to look outside of ourselves. Sometimes we do. If I'm in a car accident, take me to the emergency room. If
Right.
my appendix is about to burst, yeah, take me to a surgeon to take my appendix out. But a lot of this stuff, especially with the emotional stuff, we feel we have to look outside ourselves to have somebody else tell us what's wrong.
Right.
And that's unfortunate. That's a kind of came from Sigmund Freud. And really quickly, because I know we're running up against time, but Sigmund Freud was a hypnotherapist.
Right.
And he was studying hypnotherapy in the late
Oh, I
1800s.
mean, I said right, but I did not
Yeah.
know that. I honestly
Yeah.
did not know that. That's so interesting.
There's 2 schools of hypnotherapy in Vienna, and he was at one of them. And Sigmund Freud had a speech impediment. And so, as you can imagine, a hypnotherapy session, there's inductions and there's deepenings, and then there's maybe some sort of visual guidance to help them release what they're going through, or maybe some sort of regression back to childhood, and then of course, counting the people out and making sure they're okay and all this kind of stuff. There's a lot of talking from the
Right.
hypnotherapist. So if you have a speech impediment, it's not going to go very well. He's also kind of annoyed that people would go into a hypnotherapist office with a problem and walk out without the problem. And he
He's
wanted to
like,
dig
that's
in
not good for
deeper.
business.
Not good for business.
Yeah.
And he wanted to dive into the shadow, into the darkness of it all,
Mhm.
and find out more about it. And so he developed analytical psychology. He literally called it talk therapy, and just have the people talk about their problems. And what he said about it was, this is not a poor man's therapy because it'll take hundreds and hundreds of hours to get through this. And like you just say, yeah, it's great for the therapist.
Right.
And while he was doing this, while he's developing this foundation of analytical psychology, he was high on cocaine. He was a cocaine addict. And so when you like start scratching your head, like,
Yeah.
oh,
Oh,
and
okay.
that's not to disparage talk therapists, especially if any of
Right.
your listeners are. It's very healing. It's very
Right.
helpful. Very very
Yes.
helpful. I do been doing it myself here and there over the years, especially for relationships and
Same.
things about
Yep.
like you feel stuck in your career. It's always great to have a coach, a second pair of eyes. Every Olympic gold medal athlete has a coach.
Right.
Every professional athlete has a coach. Every musician, dancer, everybody has a coach. So yeah, have a coach. But it's just when you're getting to 2 years and 3 years and you're still talking about the same thing,
Right.
wondering if that's as helpful as it could be.
Right. Like I think about grief too, like grief being something that can process, but then my mom died 2 years ago, and it's interesting that some of my siblings are still like really grieving, like
Yeah.
in a way that I don't know. It's just and I just it's like one of those things that sort of keeps them. I don't know. It's just they're suffering, I think, a little bit,
Yeah.
and they don't need to be suffering. Like
Yeah.
I also
Yeah.
think, like, my
Grief is a hard
relationship
one
with my
too.
mom, like, of course I miss her, but like my relationship with her is just now different, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. And grief's a hard one because that's a personal thing. And you certainly can and grieve the loss of somebody. It's when it starts affecting your life and your work,
Right.
and
Yeah.
you can't get out of bed, and it's been a few months, a few years. That's
Right.
you can still miss your mom and still wish she was here and grieve her, but it's when it starts
Right.
affecting you on a big level like that maybe there's a problem. I know, like the talk therapy field, they and the psychologists, they have their DSM manual, the
Oh,
Diagnostic
right. Yeah.
Statistical
Yeah.
Manual, and they're on the fifth edition or sixth edition or something like that. I know they keep switching on like how healthy it is to grieve for how long, but I just everybody's different. And if you had a
Right.
really close relationship with your mother, or your husband or your wife or whatever, it's just like, yeah, that might hurt for a little while,
Right.
and that's all right. You may want a little bit of help if it's
Right.
affecting, you know, like you're not getting out of bed and work is suffering
Right.
and your business is going under, and yeah, you might
Right.
want some help around that, but it's okay
That's
to
a
miss
great
somebody.
perspective. Like I
Yeah.
think about Ram Dass, who's somebody who I really love.
Yeah.
He and Timothy Leary, there's a really great documentary on Netflix with those guys.
Yeah.
And I had no idea like their whole relationship. And when Timothy Leary was dying, like he was so sad, and he was just talking about grieving, and he's like, I know you just feel like you're in this like pit. He's like, but it's not bottomless.
Yeah.
So eventually you will hit the bottom to go back up. And I just always thought that was such like a beautiful bittersweet, like such a bittersweet,
Yeah.
but also like very real thing. So Craig, how can people
Yeah.
learn more if they're just like, I want to be
Yeah.
therapized. I don't know. I
Therapized.
want to be, yeah.
Well, the best
How
way
do
is
they learn more about you? You're
probably just to find
amazing.
me on the old internet. The name of my practice is Arizona Integrative Hypnotherapy. I'm in Flagstaff, Arizona. I know that's a mouthful. So
Right.
if you just Googled Flagstaff hypnosis, you'll see me come up.
Okay.
Arizona
Wonderful.
Integrative Hypnotherapy. I also have a test anxiety course. If you're struggling with, you're a teenager or you're a 65-year-old wanting to become a real estate agent, haven't taken a test in 45 years, uh, it's all about this struggle some people have, the nervousness, the anxiety around tests and building up confidence. It's called ACE Any Test. That's a little easier to remember. And you can
Nice.
email me from any one of those places.
Wonderful. And can people be hypnotized virtually?
Oh yeah, yeah. In fact, it
Okay.
works really
You
really
don't have
well.
to be in Flagstaff, people.
No. This is done around the world nowadays. That's why it's a little. I wish I had named it Arizona Integrated Hypnotherapy, but it really came about during the COVID era. Everybody wanted to stay home or was supposed to stay
Right.
home, and so all this went to Zoom. And what the research has come out over the last few years from the sociologists, they're looking at Zoom sessions, whether it's talk therapy or hypnotherapy or doctor's appointment or something like that. What they find is Zoom sessions work as well as in person. And there was even some research that showed that Zoom sessions work better than in person.
Really?
And that's because people feel
More
relaxed and
comfortable.
comfortable in their
Yeah, I
homes.
would
They feel safe
imagine.
in their homes. And if you live in
Amazing.
Denver or you live in New York or you live in Seattle, you don't have to drive across town on Friday afternoon in rush hour traffic.
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
yeah, it
And
makes
get
it
in
really convenient.
state to get in state.
Yeah, yeah,
This
yeah.
has
So,
been this has been an absolute pleasure meeting
thank you.
you. I love learning more about hypnotherapy and just I feel so proud of our brains. Like I
Yeah,
love
that's a
I
great way
just
of putting.
love
Yeah,
like how perfect the design is. Like when I got
yeah,
my brain MRI and you can see like your eyeballs and like how and just everything how it's attached
yeah,
like you get to really see under the hood. I was like
yeah.
and
It's
how is it
pretty.
so similar that they can like create surgery that then they do because we're all sort of generally made the same way. It's
Well, yeah,
just mind
pretty
blowing.
extraordinary. Yeah,
No pun intended. And I just want to thank you for really opening my mind to a whole new way of thinking about my brain and just a whole new modality that seems like it would just make such sense to add to anything that you're doing. Talk
yeah,
therapy, coaching, yoga,
yeah.
exercise,
It's adjunct. It's adjunct therapy, just as well as, not instead of. And
Oh, I
it's a
love
great
that.
thing to add to your team. Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much, Craig.
Thank you, Heather.